What if I told you The Division 2 might not survive 2025? Ubisoft's in financial freefall. The Division 3? It's in the hands of the guy who just gave us the Star Wars Outlaws flop. And let's be real, The Division 2 is no spring chicken. Hey Bandidos, Tux here, bringing you that no BS unfiltered gaming talk you don't always want to hear, but you probably need to. And we're going to be tackling that question that's haunted this game for years. Should you be playing The Division 2 in 2025? Will it survive, or is it time to put it to rest? I'm not here to fanboy or sugarcoat anything. If that's what you need, click away, because if there are ominous clouds on the horizon, I'm going to call them out. So buckle up, because this is an unfiltered conversation about the current and future state of The Division 2. There's so much going on, tons to unpack here. Let's do this.
Wait, did we just become best friends? So nice to meet you. I think you're cool.
Piece of shit wristwatch.
All right, let's cut through the noise and get to the heart of the matter. Should you play The Division 2 in 2025? Well, here's the lowdown. The Division 2 is a solid looter shooter with immersive world design, compelling lore, and engaging gameplay. It's easy to get hooked, which explains the small but dedicated community that's stuck around. From a game design perspective, it's a thumbs up. And it's so cheap right now, it's kind of crazy. But, and it's a big but, the next 6 months are absolutely critical. Why? Because 2025 is stacked with heavy hitter game releases, and Ubisoft's messy handling of the franchise could push The Division 2 further into obscurity. It would be completely naive to ignore Ubisoft itself is in chaos when evaluating the future of the Division franchise in 2025. Delays, cancellations, and financial turbulence scream instability. Experts are even speculating that Ubisoft's restructuring and potential privatization could shake its franchises to the core. That puts a giant question mark over not just the Division 2's longevity, but also over the viability of the Division 3. So forget any spoon-fed toxic positivity or blind nostalgia. If you're thinking about playing the Division 2 in 2025, you need to see the big picture. Let's zoom out and take a closer look. First, let's talk about Ubisoft. It's no secret they've had a rough go of it lately. Financial budgets, delays across their entire portfolio, and some, let's call it creative decision-making, have left their reputation in the red. At Massive Entertainment, the studio behind The Division 2 hasn't exactly been knocking it out of the park in the community management department. Updates are slow, communication is cryptic, and promises, well, they're often broken or underwhelming. Let's add some gasoline to the fire, shall we? Juice Van Drunen recently predicted that Ubisoft might be headed for privatization or even dismantling in 2025. In his newsletter, he pointed out Ubisoft's nose-diving stock price, dropping from $28.19 to $12.30, making the company a prime takeover target. The kicker is that key franchises like Rainbow Six Siege and Assassin's Creed might actually be worth more sold off individually than as part of Ubisoft's crumbling empire. With shareholders circling like vultures, the company could start auctioning off its crown jewels sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, Ubisoft dropped a bombshell. X-Defiant is officially sunsetting in 2025. This is a huge L considering how much Ubisoft bet on it. The fallout? Well, only the closure of 2 production studios and nearly 300 layoffs, a brutal sign of deeper trouble behind the curtain. Oh, and as if things couldn't get worse, Ubisoft's stock hits a 10-year low. And yet on September 21st, they announced that Division 3 is now in development at Massive Entertainment. Interesting timing, huh? But wait, there's more. Remember Rainbow Six Mobile and the Division resurgence? Yeah, me neither, because they've been radio silent. Announced back in 2022, these free-to-play mobile shooters were supposed to drop before March 2025. Now, both have been delayed indefinitely, with Ubisoft saying the devs need more time to meet expectations. Translation: Ubisoft's house is on fire and no one knows if the sprinklers even work. All right, let's talk about the delay of Assassin's Creed Shadows and what it means. So Ubisoft pushed the game's release from November 2024 to February 14th, 2025. Happy Valentine's Day. This isn't just a minor scheduling change, it's a big deal for Ubisoft. The delay has already had financial repercussions, with Ubisoft shares dropping over 17% following the announcement. That's crazy. The company also lowered its financial forecast, signaling that the postponement is hitting their bottom line hard. For players, the delay could be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it might mean a more polished and complete game at launch, which is always a good thing. On the other hand, it could also indicate deeper issues within Ubisoft's development process, especially considering the recent controversies surrounding the game. In the end, while waiting a bit longer might be frustrating, if it leads to a better gaming experience, it could be worth it. However, the financial and reputational impact on Ubisoft is already unfolding, and it remains to be seen how they'll navigate these changes leading up to the new release date. Now, here's why this matters. What is a more lucrative franchise for Ubisoft? Assassin's Creed or The Division? I'll wait. So if you chose AC, you were right. In the latest financial report, Ubisoft revealed its highest grossing franchises in terms of consumer spending. And it's worth noting that Ubisoft doesn't typically share this data. So this is what we know. Over the past 10 years, from September 2014 to September 2024, the brands that have generated the most revenue for Ubisoft are, drumroll, Assassin's Creed, approximately 4.4 billion USD. Rainbow Six Siege, over 3.85 billion. Far Cry, over 2.2 billion. Interestingly, Rainbow Six Siege alone is comparable in consumer spending to the entire Assassin's Creed series. Since its release in 2015, this game has become one of the major titles in the company's portfolio. But check this out. Ubisoft also has 3 other game series where consumer spending has exceeded $1 billion. So we got Ghost Recon, Just Dance. Yeah, you heard me right. Just Dance. I know. And guess what else? The Division. They didn't disclose precise data for each franchise, but the Division franchise delivering over $1 billion to the Ubisoft portfolio is nuts. You'd think that amount of money would make a statement to the publisher, but apparently $1 billion isn't good enough for Ubisoft to give it priority support. But it's probably big enough to catch the eye of another, and if that Juiced Van Drunen fellow is correct and Ubisoft starts selling off its assets, this would be a prime candidate. Let's talk about Star Wars Outlaws, the latest game from Massive Entertainment. It dropped in August 2024 with big promises of a Han Solo style adventure, but landed more like Jar Jar Binks. I hate that guy. Critics slammed it for repetitive gameplay and shallow mechanics. Polygon even called it visually stunning, but ultimately boring. Ouch. But I gotta say, that description sounds like a typical Ubisoft open world game, doesn't it? So the sales, not great. So Outlaws sold just 1 million copies in its first month. I know that sounds great, but for a Star Wars title, that's extremely disappointing. So to compare, Assassin's Creed Mirage, which released the same year, hit 5 million copies in its first 3 months. That kind of gap isn't just noticeable, it's alarming for a company like Ubisoft, especially when it costs them out of pocket to pick up that title before they even started development. So now here's where it gets interesting, or concerning, depending on your perspective. Julian Garrity, the guy behind Outlaws, is taking the reins for The Division 3, and that transition has been officialized. Ubisoft just made him executive producer for the whole Division franchise. If you're wondering, wait, isn't this the same guy who helped make The Division a hit? You're right. Under his lead, the first game sold over 20 million copies by 2019 and paved the way for The Division 2. But after the lukewarm reception for Outlaws, you have to wonder, is this the Julian Garrity who brought The Division to life, or the one who just put out a Star Wars game that missed the mark? Only time will tell if The Division 3 will be his big redemption or just another letdown. Okay, so we're finally at that big question. How does all this behind the scenes turmoil affect The Division 2 and the upcoming The Division 3? Well, for one, it would be completely naive to think there won't be any impact. So Ubisoft has previously shown that no title is immune to being left behind if it no longer meets their financial or strategic goals. The cancellation of The Division Heartland in 2024, for instance, was largely due to the company's decision to reallocate resources to other higher priority projects. That was X-Defiant, right? Ouch. That one really hurt the Division community, especially when X-Defiant tanks. Face palm for sure. Either way, this shift highlights Ubisoft's willingness to cut losses and focus on what they perceive as bigger opportunities, even when a game has potential. Prime example. Creative director Yannick Bonkra, I always say his name wrong, sorry about that, revealed that support for Division 2 was originally intended to end in 2020, but investors prompted the company to continue its support. Of course, we learned this in hindsight many years later. So given Ubisoft's past decisions, it is possible that the Division 2 could see its post-launch support cut back if newer projects like Assassin's Creed Shadows which we know is a Ubisoft golden child that has controversy surrounding it, captures more attention and resources. This could lead to tighter budgets and more conservative decision making, potentially stalling support for the Division franchise. And priority shifts like these happen frequently and always behind the scenes, which is why Division players always feel they are left in the lurch with unresolved issues and a lack of new content. There's nobody there working on it. This reminds me, Ubisoft has job postings up for the Division 3, and you've probably come across YouTubers hyping this up as a positive development. But let's be real, that is super surface level thinking, devoid of any critical analysis. If anyone just digs a little bit deeper, like a fucking inch, it's clear this isn't a sign of a healthy company building for the bright future. It's a desperate attempt to keep the wheels turning while the ship takes on tons of water. But I have a question. Why would anyone in their right mind join a company that's making headlines for all the wrong reasons? If you knew the company was tanking, would you apply? Ubisoft is teetering on the edge of privatization and potentially being dismantled, with rumors swirling about asset sell-offs. I mean, massive studios themselves are probably shitting their pants wondering if they're going to have a job in a few months. So combine that with the recent layoffs of nearly 300 employees and the closure of 2 studios, and the optics aren't exactly screaming stability here. Here's the kicker. These job postings might not even be serious. Companies often put up listings for legal or PR reasons, creating the illusion of progress or complying with hiring policies. So for example, even though we had an internal candidate at companies I've worked for in the past, we had to put the job posting up on the internet or whatever for equal opportunity reasons or whatever. I'm no HR guy. But odds are Ubisoft is quietly pulling talent from within, either redeploying staff from other projects or rehiring some of the very people they just laid off. Wouldn't that be smarter anyways? This is a textbook move to keep up appearances, but it raises a bigger question. If the future of the company is so uncertain, why would anyone take the gamble? Somebody please answer me this. Okay, I love this game, but I have to hold back my laugh when I ask this question. Is the Division 2 successful right now? I have to say, by no realistic business definition could this be considered a success right now. You don't have to go too far back in time to recall the major PC stability issues plaguing the player base. It tarnished the game's reputation. Despite concerns for customer experience, they even released it on Steam in this unstable state, further creating frustration. Don't believe me? Just go back and look at all the negative reviews. And for the longest time, it seemed as if the game was just going to be left broken and PC players abandoned. In hindsight, we learned it sat that way for a crazy long time because they disbanded the developer team that had the experience to fix it. These guys were working on other titles like Star Wars and Avatar and apparently X-Defiant probably. This, of course, was all because they thought they were going to end support for the Division 2, and then they changed their mind, which meant there wasn't anybody left on the team to resolve these PC issues. So finally, in an attempt to remedy this, Ubisoft rolled out Project Resolve in year 5 of season 3. So this was this big comprehensive update aimed at improving player experience and laying the groundwork for future content, which of course meant a major stability update for PCs. I think that's what it was really about. So there were some other game rebalancing things and quality of life updates, but it was mostly the PC thing. But since then, we've had more significant loss in player base because of problems that persisted, including crashes, and things just continued to get worse. The seasonal structure in the Division 2 operates on a 4-month cycle, which is notably longer than the industry standard of 3 months. And if you actually play the game, it feels like a lifetime. So this decision was made with the intention of delivering higher quality releases. However, the community has yet to see the promised improvements. In fact, every time we get a patch or some sort of update, we expect it to break the game. It's just what we do. We expect it. It's not being negative. It's experience that has taught us that. So the longer seasons and Project Resolve ended up pushing out all of the content, including the Brooklyn DLC, out to 2025. So the extended seasons and delays have left the game feeling extremely drawn out. You have to be aware of this if you're going to play in 2025. Whatever content we have, whether it's new or existing, it becomes stale long before the next update arrives. Speaking of year 6 season 2, most players hit that board mark around 6 weeks. Overall, this has led to the sense that the game is failing to keep pace with player expectations. So what happened next is we faced a series of unfortunate events hitting the game community in rapid succession. So back in May of 2024, we were hit with the bombshell, and this echoed through time. Seasonal characters were coming in Seasons 2.0, slated to release in Year 6, Season 2, which is where we're at right now. And that was a few months away at the time. That had the community in an uproar. The introduction of seasonal characters in Seasons 2.0 was intended to refresh the gameplay experience by having players start a new character each season, similar to the approach taken by the Diablo franchise. However, because of the significant backlash from the community, Ubisoft decided to reevaluate Seasons 2.0 and ended up progressing without seasonal characters. This caused some delays, of course, but meanwhile, Year 6 Season 1 launched with some of the worst gear and exotics we had ever seen. This was after the community gave extensive and precise feedback during PTS testing. Yet for 2 seasons in a row, we received duds. But that's not all. There were serious delays to the launch, followed by major bugs in the new season, broken benches, glitched control points, and XP nerfs that were plaguing the game. Oh, that's not even the doozy. Title Update 21.1 was the doozy, which hit about a month later. So after a 3-hour delay, the game was absolutely broken. Old bugs were reintroduced, and so numerous they seemed to reach every corner of the game. All this while the game has been losing players since the introduction of the idea of seasonal characters. And remember, Project Resolve was supposed to give us more quality releases. That was not the case. In the end, all we had was lost time. So this 21.1 game-breaking patch, a month went by and the community had yet to have a stable game. Finally, Seasons 2.0 was introduced, and that gave us a new seasonal structure with modifiers, which in the end significantly shifted the game dynamics. However, bugs and tuning issues led to an extremely divided community. So I put up a poll, and in the end, it turned out that half the players had either opted out of using modifiers or had left the game entirely. And those players that are playing without modifiers are going to start feeling, if they already haven't, forgotten, potentially leading to further departures, because as far as we know, the devs are dug in on seasonal modifiers, and we're only going to be getting more of them. But the real problem was the quality of release. These things needed to be tuned back, and a lot of them were bugged. And to this day, the game continues to lose players because Massive Studios is slow to pace and basically silent as months go by between any real communication. And that's basically where we are right now. So what's the deal with The Division 2 in 2025? Well, let's be real. It's been a while since we've seen any major new content. So the last significant update, Paradise Lost, was in Title Update 19, dropped over a year ago. Yeah, the community's quite desperate and looking forward to that DLC in Brooklyn sometime in 2025, hopefully March. But if you're a diehard fan, there's still fun to be had. The gameplay loop, when it works, is addictive, and build optimization is one of a kind. But if you're expecting regular updates, cutting-edge content, or groundbreaking innovations, lower those expectations. No, seriously, lower. For years, the Division community has been on the lookout for the next looter shooter that could dethrone the Division franchise. Nothing has come close. And it's why in 2023, 66 games accounted for 80% of all playtime. And most of that went to titles 6 or more years old. Games like The Division 2, Fortnite, and GTA 5 thrive because they've built a strong, lasting community. Players stick around because they've invested time, money, and effort. And let's not forget the comfort and nostalgia these games offer, making it harder for newer titles to compete. That said, the Division community is tired. Stagnation has left even the most dedicated players weary and bored. As we look ahead to 2025, the competition is really starting to heat up. A wave of fresh, exciting titles like Marvel's GTA 6, Borderlands 4, which has a TV series out, by the way, which is pretty cool, Dune Awakening, and Doom The Dark Ages is set to arrive. There's no doubt these games are going to pull players away from The Division 2, making it harder for the game to maintain its already declining player base, which is also started to play other games like Path of Exile, The First Descendant, Helldivers 2, blah, blah, blah. The next big hope for the franchise is the highly anticipated Brooklyn DLC. But here's the problem. It's being developed and published by the same studio and company that have consistently failed this community. Until Ubisoft and Massive show signs of real change, better communication, transparency, and accountability, yeah, stop laughing, it's hard to expect anything different. Bugs, delays, broken promises, it's the pattern players have come to expect. Now, I know some fans are calling for the franchise to move on to The Division 3, but look, launching The Division 3 now with the community in its current fractured state would be a huge mistake. It's not just about needing a new game, it's about repairing the relationship between the developer and the player base. If the Brooklyn DLC launches with the same issues we've seen before, any initial excitement will fizzle fast. I think that the new DLC will bring players back in hopes that things have changed, but if they haven't, then they will leave. We see this with every major release. So before the DLC drops, Ubisoft and Massive need to focus on fixing The Division 2, address the bugs, rebuild trust with the community. That's huge. Simply communicate with us would be a start, and show that they've learned from past mistakes. Only then can the Brooklyn DLC and eventually The Division 3 have a shot at success. So if that all sounds negative, sorry, but like I said, we are going to keep it real around here, and I'm not going to sugarcoat anything or be that Ubisoft shill and pretend everything is hunky-dory. Let's look forward. This is looking forward in the reality of the situation. So if you're asking me, should you play The Division 2 in 2025? Absolutely. I bet you weren't expecting that. It's still one of a kind. The truth is, if you love the core gameplay and know what to expect, then absolutely play this game. Keep an eye on the 2025 roadmap though. Beyond the DLC slated for March, everything's shrouded in mystery. But here's the catch. I wouldn't recommend putting any more dollars into the game until we see real change from Massive's community management. What I'm doing is keeping my wallet close to my chest. I'm not spending any dollars on The Division, not until I start to see change from the development team, because that's who I feel like I'm investing in, not the game. And if other people think like me, then the future of The Division depends on whether Ubisoft can learn to treat its community and its franchises with the care they deserve. Actions speak louder than promises, and right now, the silence is deafening. And pay attention to what's happening with their other golden children like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Star Wars, and Rainbow Six. That said, now's the perfect time to start exploring other games. The uncertainty surrounding the Division franchise and the snail's pace of progress makes it hard to bet your gaming future here. There's a whole gaming world out there waiting, and honestly, it's better to have options in case the storm clouds over Ubisoft don't clear up anytime soon. So, what do you think? Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm Tuxedo Bandido, and if you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on the good stuff I have coming for you. And if you like content like this, be sure to check out the video I have recommended for you right here. If you have anything you would like me to cover, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make things possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be the same without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Wait, did we just become best friends?